Hey, there you are, everybody. Yeah, didn't go too far. Welcome back to another live edition of Veteran Nation. Joining me, as always, is the very great T.C. Pearson from the Great Wide North.
Um, It's not quite white yet, but
It
I'm trying to adjust my framing here.
October
I have to
and
put some sort of marker on my camera settings so that Juan and I don't have to do this every week. We're supposed to have a guest on tonight, but um, it looks like we might be having some communication issues. That's what happens when you let the Air Force try to communicate with the Army. Someone gets accidentally bombed.
Com
Um,
in the Marine Corps always
I do
sucks.
want to I do want to say that if the colonels aren't available next week, that's just what happens when you leave colonels in charge. So
The cat's away, the mice will play.
Juan's supposed to text me his number. I
Well, while you do that, I'll
Okay,
talk
so
about
here.
something that's happening in the news today. Uh, uh, we had our president give a policy today on transgenders in the military. The Biden administration has made the determination that trans women must register for the draft. Trans men do not have to. I'm very curious as to what the LGBTQ community feels about this discrimination. Quite honestly, uh, I wonder though if it's because trans women seem to be more successful at sports than trans men. Uh, when you see that transition going the other way, they're not as available on the sports front. But yeah, my question: Are we agreeing that these are biologically men now? Because men are the only people who can be drafted per U.S. law. I know it's been it's gone or going in front of the Supreme Court. I don't remember which, but it is being challenged. And with the Army and Navy's recruiting goals being missed, I would not be surprised to see politicians start talking about reinstituting at least some form of the draft. So if you have children, um, have them become trans men because trans men are not going to be drafted.
What if I have a male child? Can I have him become a trans woman and then
Trans women get drafted.
be, no? Let me finish. Officers, gee, and always got to talk. Um, can if I have a male child, can he become a trans woman and then once he becomes a trans woman, decide he wants to be a man instead and then become a trans man and then therefore avoid the draft?
I guess that's what they mean by gender fluid. You can just flow one way or the other, but the Biden administration is probably going
I
to
thought
try to.
I thought that had something to do with certain bathroom functions, but
We, just like us on this show, we like to roll with the flow. You know what I mean?
so Skipper, I don't know if you've been paying attention and it looks like Juan, are you working things out with our guest? Okay. Um, it looks like I don't want to be the person who says it very often, because if I had to say it as often as it happened, I'd be saying it all the time. And I think you already know what I'm going to say. But TC is going to have to say, I told you so, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now confirmed that the United States military does indeed, not black ops, not clandestine CIA special missions teams or fire teams or anything like that. United States military does have combat troops in combat roles in combat operations with the Ukrainian military
Mm-hmm.
on the ground.
Yep.
When are you going to say enough is enough, folks? When are you going to? I know this is Veteran Nation. Guess what? That's why this is Veteran Nation. I know this is Red America Media. Not everybody's going to agree with me. I know that there are people probably somewhere out there who are thinking, we have to get behind this. No, we don't. There are no good guys in this situation. There are two sides that are evil. There are two evil sides. Really, there's three evil sides. NATO, Ukraine, and Russia. And caught in the mix of that are the innocent civilians and the men and women who are being put into combat positions in the Ukrainian military, the Russian military, and now the American and NATO forces that are confirmed on the ground, who are going to die. They're going to die.
You know, one thing that's it's been a point of frustration for me for decades. The American people, we tend to project ourselves onto others, we think that they have our values, they have our way of thinking, much like how people project humanity onto their pets, and oh, he's thinking this. um, we do that with various cultures, and I don't think the American peoples quite grasp how different they are. They don't think like us. And in the last show, for Council of Colonels, I was talking about the corruption. That is accepted. It's an everyday thing over there. I don't think the American people quite understand that.
Uh, Skipper, I don't know, I'm black pilled today. I am. I'm black pilled, and part of it's because of a conversation that's been ongoing for me for the last couple of hours with an individual whose son's in the army, and I feel bad for them, but they just cannot wrap their minds around the fact that we are needlessly fighting wars all over the world. And I said it's time that we pull our American soldiers, airmen, seamen, Marines, out of every single conflict. Gone.
Mm.
Every single place that is not an American nation or American state or American territory, like literal, not like what we just claim as our territory because we're protecting them from whatever it is we caused in their country in the first place, but an actual territory. Pull them all out. Pull out of Saudi Arabia. Stop the bombing in Yemen. Get away from Syria. Get away from Israel for sure. All of it gone. Gone. Get out of Eastern Europe. Get out of Western Europe. Get out of Asia. Anywhere that we have troops. Anywhere. South Korea. Anywhere. Done. Be done with it. And this guy's mad at me. You're a leftist. Like, we all know that you're a commie. I'm like, what? Like, you literally don't know me. And here's the deal. These normie cons, they think that it's conservative. They think that it's American loving to be behind all of this, because if you say no more, then you must not love your the soldiers. You must not love the military. You must not support them. And I'm over here going, I'm going to get emotional. I'm like, I care about these people. How many more freaking body bags do we need to see come home? How many? And worse, I just had Scott Horton on. How many soldiers did we lose in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and other places? How many? Thousands. Do you know how many you get when you add in all the veteran suicides? 37,000 dead. 37,000 dead because of wars that had nothing to do with protecting the United States, which is why I wanted to have our guest on tonight, and it looks like Juan's still working on it, because the story that our guest has to tell ties in so much to what we talk about on this show with the veteran suicide and veteran mental health and veteran homelessness. And it looks like he might have it worked out. I saw a flash of color. Either that or I'm having a stroke. One of the two. So, oh, there we go. We've got camera. Juan, I think you logged into your OnlyFans account.
Hopefully, as a a watcher. Not. I hope Juan's
I
not a content
I
creator.
All
oh,
right.
I subscribed. So, looks like we have our guest, Mr.
Oh,
Richey. Thank you for doing this tonight.
of course. Thank you for having me on.
So you missed my rant.
That's okay.
There'll be many
That's
of
the
them.
only reason that. That's the only reason that Skipper. So Skipper, this is Isaac. Isaac, this is Skipper. Um,
Welcome to the show.
you met Juan on the phone, and just so everybody knows, Isaac and I've never actually had a voice to voice conversation. So we're getting voice to voice and face to face, sort of, for the very first time. I heard Isaac on with Jake and oh man, my brain's freezing up. But the guys from Guns and Mental Health, because Isaac has a really compelling story about mental health in the military and what it does to impact. You're a vet, and your life has been impacted because of your military service.
Yes. You cut out a little bit
Oh, we
there.
lost
so
the
can I
sound.
get you
There we
to?
go.
Can I get you just to repeat what you said there?
How far back you want me to go? The beginning of the show? Because I
Oh no.
no,
He's
Just
5-second
no,
Dave.
no. So I heard you on with Jake and the guys at on Guns and Mental Health, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to combine something, Guns and Mental Health is like the most, like, the antithesis of what most people would imagine combining. But Jake and the crew at Guns and Mental Health do a great job, and so they had Isaac on here this week and a half or so ago to talk about the situation that he experienced while he was on active duty, and it has haunted him now that he's out in the civilian world. And I was compelled to bring him on because it speaks to the reality of what the show is about, which is the increasing number of veterans committing suicide who aren't getting mental health care the way they should while they're on active duty, and even when they're off of active duty. And I just, like, this guy's story has got to get out there, and I'd love to do more of this, tell more of these stories. We have some great guests on, all of the entrepreneurs, all of the business startups, all of the people who are writing books, and all the experts and the pros. You know, we've tried to get Lieutenant Colonel Scheller on. Great story, love to tell that.
Mhm.
But as a vet, as an enlisted vet, this is the kind of story I want people to hear. So, Juan, if you want to bring the other two up. So, Isaac, give us a little background about what happened and when you served.
So I was stationed at Fort Drum, New York, and I was there for only about 2 years. I didn't stay in for that long. I actually I ended up getting out early, unfortunately, but it didn't have anything to do with the mental health thing that happened. But God, where do I begin? So the unit that I was in, and I don't want to like dox them or anything like that, but the unit that I was in was very much well known for its suicide rate, actually. I mean, my first year, we had one successful suicide in my unit, or in my company, excuse me. And we had, I think it was not in 3 legitimate suicide attempts. Most of them were because of hazing, bullying, and toxic leadership, which is very common throughout you guys are veterans, so very, 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 very common amongst the junior enlisted and senior NCOs, unfortunately. I like to say that the military is very much experience may vary. There's a lot of people that I speak to who had a great time. I can't necessarily say the same. I don't regret it. I don't regret it whatsoever. It taught me an incredible amount of discipline. It forged me into the person that I am today. And sometimes I miss it every now and again. But that's a little bit of
Isaac,
the background.
I have to interject for just a moment because the audience expects a certain amount of banter. So I just want everybody to know Isaac's experience with discipline and being a better man today is reflective of the enlisted man. Skipper didn't have that experience.
Hey, I was enlisted. I was a Mustang officer. So
Skipper, we lost your sound. Awesome. That's exactly what you want from an officer.
Oh.
I can see bars. You got me?
Oh, yeah, we got you now.
Okay. Yeah, I was enlisted. I was a Mustang officer, so I I've painted rocks.
Well, I could only say it. I could only say it about you because Juan wasn't in the studio at the time. So, so Isaac, you you went through a level of hazing, and everybody in the military, officers enlisted to some degree. You know, when you're the low man on the totem pole, you're going to get some level of hazing. But what you went through was not just standard hazing. It was almost like you were targeted. Uh, from the
Yeah,
story that you were
my
sharing with Jake, and
so the unit, or I keep saying unit, and when I mean unit, I'm trying to say company, and I just keep
Mhm.
jumping up on my words. But the I'm trying to figure out. I'm gonna go. I guess I'll say that I agree with you that there is a healthy. I'm gonna say a controversial statement, but there's a healthy level of hazing. I believe that you're the new guy, you're gonna get picked on, you're gonna get messed with. I mean that's even. I mean it's to a different degree in the military because they can tell you what to do. But I mean even as a even going for like a civilian job. I mean, you're the new guy. You're gonna get messed with. Also, am I allowed to curse? I want to make sure I want to before if I drop an F bomb, I'm not gonna get in trouble, am I?
Just keep
hello.
them light. Don't do it every other sentence.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I just want to be sure.
Juan's a Christian.
But yes, like you said,
Well, TC
uh,
plays one.
like you said, it everyone goes through a little bit of hazing, but what I went through was I don't know. I can't confirm whether or not it was targeted or not, but it definitely felt targeted,
It
and I'm
sound
sure a
targeted
lot
to
of
me when you were describing it. So
yeah. It I think a lot of I mean I'm a smaller guy. I'm a smaller built dude. Obviously, I mean I'm wearing a tank top because I just got back from the gym, so I'm not 6'5", 300 pounds. So I'm an easy target for somebody who wants to mess with. And when I was new in the military, I was very shy, I didn't speak a lot. Eventually, as I
Hmm.
went through the years that I was in, I kind of grabbed my cojones and became a better, more of a man, I guess. But yes, it reached the point where it was
Not for good order and
every single
discipline.
day. Yeah, it was every day for a year straight. Every single day. I didn't get a break. Even on the weekends, people would come and they'd mess with me. It wasn't until after my hospitalization that it completely stopped. And it definitely.
Was it physical?
well, you just touched. Go ahead.
Was it
He
physical?
asked if it was physical.
No, no. So we had something that we called Friday night fight nights, and every Friday at the end of at COB, a lot of people would get together and they would just kind of wrestle together, and it was all fun and games, for the most part. But there were specific guys, the ones who were the I guess the bulliers, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, the ones who were the most aggressive with their hazing, who would constantly point me out, and then everyone would, you got to go, you got to do it, you got to do it, and it was one of those things where I was new, I had to listen. I don't really count that because it was. It's not like I was having a good time, it wasn't fun or anything like that, but I don't count that as malicious,
Hmm.
so to say. It was more so when the NCOs would get involved is when to me it started to become a little bit more than just some Joes messing around and having
Hmm.
fun. And there were days where, to touch a little bit more onto it, I guess this is a veteran podcast. So a lot of people understand the term being smoked, and in my opinion, there's a time and a place for that. There is. I'm not gonna try to say that I'm some sort of weird PC person where nobody should get smoked. No, there's a time and place for it. And there were times at my unit where I deserved it. Like there was a we went out to go do some training exercise, and what was nice is we had these barracks that we could stay in, and we went out to go. I think we were shooting AT4s or something. It was supposed to be a range that could have gone into the night, and I didn't understand that I needed to bring my nods. So I left them back at my locker that was inside the barracks. Shit up to the unit, didn't have my nods, I got smoked. I deserved that. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't listening. I deserved that. But then you go back to other forms of it where it was, every morning you would get up and you would be around surrounded by everybody and they would ask you questions that you obviously are not going to know the answer to. I'm brand new to the unit. Let's say it's my first month or two in and they're asking you, who is second platoon, second squad leader. And you're like, I don't know. And then they smoke you for 2 hours. And it would be that kind of thing throughout the entire day.
Mm-hmm.
And when you would get off, it'd be the end of the day, you'd be in your barracks room. They'd come to my room and they'd mess with me. And it wasn't just junior enlisted, there were NCOs involved as well. And I wasn't the only person experiencing this. One of the guys, unfortunately, was a Private Ellis. His squad leader was actually authorizing the majority of this hazing, from what I understand. And he couldn't handle it, and he hung himself in his barracks room. CID got involved, and they brushed it under the rug as per typical military. They brushed it under the rug, pretended like it was nothing.
The military investigated itself and found out that it had done nothing wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And it was if it was just 30, 60 days of that kind of nonsense, I would have I don't think it would have affected me. But when you have that kind of treatment for a year straight, it really does start to kind of wear down on you. Especially because the guys that are supposed to be around you are supposed to be the guys that you can trust.
Let's just be upfront. You expect to get the crap hazed out of you in basic training or boot camp. Like, that's what they're there. They're there to break you down. Not to strip you of your manhood, but they're there to break you down, to turn you into a fighting force that takes orders and can handle things. And you made it through basic. You were at permanent party. You were assigned to an active military unit in a MOS related position. You were not in basic or AIT. You were literally assigned to a unit. You should have been assimilated and trained as if going to war. And instead, what you were dealing with was basically high school level bullying under the guise of team building that
is the
far surpassed what you should have been dealing with after basic and AIT. And I'm old school, military. Well, I have to say that because old school military would say you have no idea how hard it really was, But I'm just a touch older than you, Isaac. Just a smidge. Just a smidge. And things are definitely different, when you went in compared to when I went in or when Skipper went in. And, when Juan went in, they didn't even have basic training. In fact, Juan was in the Air Force and they had just invented airplanes. So for you went from a hazing environment, which ultimately was basic training and boot camp are hazing. That's what it is. It's hazing. But you went from that environment where you understood what they were doing to the next environment, thinking, okay, this is going to be my job. This is going to be what I'm going to do. These are supposed to be people I can rely on. These are supposed to be people that I'm supposed to build camaraderie with, a sense of team and unit cohesion. These are the people I'm going to go to war with, and it went immediately to, we're going to pick on this guy. For whatever reason.
There were specific guys, and I don't think it was a size thing, because the guy, Private Ellis, God bless his soul, he was very large built man. And there were some individuals that weren't picked on, and then there were some that were. Now, as for what the particular reason was, I don't know. And
how old were you?
Oh God, when this started, I would have been 18 because I enlisted when I was 17. So it was 18. So it was 18 and 19 was probably the peak of it. Because like I said, after my hospitalization, it stopped immediately.
Let's touch on that. So you were not. You are. What's your ethnicity by descent?
I am half black, half white.
Half black, half white. And you were raised with your grandparents as your parents.
Correct. Yeah, my mother was in my life, but my grandpa and my grandmother, or excuse me, my grandpa and my grandma were the people that I looked up to, and
See,
they
I
were
told you.
primarily the ones.
I listened to the podcast. See, I'm like, so I'm not just making it up. I didn't just like reach out to Jake blindly. So so you were very close with your grandparents, um, and you weren't listening to you. You weren't raised in the kind of environment where you were coddled.
Oh God, no. I mean, I was raised by boomers, so I was very much raised in the, you know, we work for a living. We're men here. We don't cry. We don't show emotion. You know, we're tough. We're hard. That's how I was raised, and yeah.
So so it wasn't like you were, one of those kids who expected a ribbon for just showing up to basic training and a slap on the back and
No,
thought you
not.
should be the next Snake Eyes on GI Joe or anything like that.
Oh no, I mean my grandpa growing up, I mean I love him to death. And I mean I got my first job when I was 15, and I remember, I mean I grew up very poor. So my grandpa was a very very cheap man in the good way, not in the bad way. And
Did you
I mean
hear
I
that,
remember
Skipper? In the good way.
when I was 15, I saw all my friends were getting cars and all this fancy stuff, and I remember I'd always go to my grandpa and I go, "Well, can you help me with this kind of stuff?" He'd look at me and go, are you crazy? You think I'm gonna give you that kind of money? No, go get a job." And so I got a job when I was 16, and that's where my working day started. That's how I afforded the car that I own. That's how I afforded the gas that I owned. Obviously, they paid for my food, but I mean, anything extra, I mean, I had to work for it, and that's how I was raised. I mean, I it was a my grandpa taught me a lot of lessons growing up about frugality and being, you know knowing how to be tough, knowing how to be strong, knowing that us as men, we work hard, we provide. That's how I was raised.
And I have a funny feeling from listening to you describe your grandpa that if a switch was needed, it was used.
Yes.
So, yes, you don't have to go into detail. We don't want to embarrass Grandpa, but so it wasn't like you were mollycoddled your whole life and told how you were a perfect little cherub of an angel and whatnot. So like this, you weren't weak in the sense of you may not be big, but you weren't weak and like you couldn't handle some criticism.
No, mentally I was I mean, I've always been a very just mentally tough person, and I think part of that is my grandfather, but part of it is just I have a very stoic attitude towards a lot of things, and that has a good and a bad. I have
But
my
you
mentality.
internalize more as a stoic.
Exactly. That's where the negative comes from. There's a lot of things that I just, I'm very my go-to motto when anything goes wrong in my life is, "Hey, it is what it is. We'll figure it out." And that's how I was raised. My grandpa was very much the same way. He was just, when things got tough, when things got hard, it's just, what? I mean, we survived hard times before, so why aren't we going to survive it this time? It is what it is.
Hmm.
No, it's funny that you say that your go-to motto is what it is because anytime something goes wrong in my life, I automatically assume it's the FBI.
There you go.
So I finally got a smile out of Juan tonight. Um, so this is all going on, and and I like I said, the crowd is a little bit used to some banter, so I don't want to downplay the severity of
Oh
your
no, you're
story,
good.
um, but the the reality is you're going through this, you're struggling. Like, why is this happening to me? What did I do? And then something pretty tragic happens in your life.
Yeah, so at the time, while I was kind of dealing with a little bit of the hazing, I had my grandmother. She passed away. She had a really bad form of diabetes, And my grandmother, she grew up Indonesian, or she was born in Indonesia, Surabaya, Indonesia. So she had at least this is my theory. I can't say this for sure, but she had a very strange way at looking at Western medicine. And so she was very much did not like taking pills, did not like taking specific medicines. She was a very healthy person. She ate very clean and exercised a lot. But when the diabetes started to get to the point where she needed to take metformin on a regular basis, she just refused. And we don't know why. I mean, there's no way to know at this point. But part of it for me just thinks that it was just there's a part of it of me that believes that because of the state that she was in, she was a very active woman, and when the diabetes started to get bad, she could no longer be active. So she used to go on hikes and mountains. She used to bike all the time and all this crazy physical activities. And when the diabetes got so bad to the point where she was essentially couch bound, I think she just wanted to die. And so I think there was a part of it that was that, and then the other part of it was the fact that she just was not too keen on the whole taking pills. So those two mixed together, the diabetes ended up killing her. And I remember.
But you were notified that somebody reached out to you and said, "Hey, Grandma, your mom isn't doing well, and you need to come home if you can." And so you went through the hardship process and were able to go home and see her before she passed.
Yeah, I was able to see her. She was in a state where she couldn't talk or speak, but I knew that she could. I knew she could hear me. So thank God I was able to see her when I could. And I remember too, this was another kind of mental point, because at that point, I mean, my mental state was already I was already pretty depressed, and mostly from the hazing that my grandmother obviously took its toll on me. But I remember one of the moments that it almost kind of clicked, like there was a switch that was pulled, was my grandmother. She died. We weren't expecting her to die when I was there. We thought she was gonna, maybe live for a little longer, but she died while I was still on leave. And I wanted to see her funeral. My grandpa had a funeral planned. It was very small. We don't have a lot of money, so it was just kind of like a family comes over to the house and we have a little party and stuff like that. And I wanted to be there for that. And I remember my unit commander denied my request to extend my leave, even after I told him what happened. And
did you have a
that
mission?
was one of the moments where it just like hit me how toxic of the situation that I was in. And it's not like we weren't going to be deploying. There wasn't any crazy training exercises going. There was nothing going on. It was just a typical, normal. There was nothing. There was no reason to do that besides the commander.
Skipper, check your sound.
Yeah, it's going in and out.
Oh,
yep,
we can't
nothing
hear
again.
But he answered my question. I was asking if there was anything mission-wise going on.
There we go.
Oh, yeah. There we go. We can hear you now. Say that again.
Oh, you actually answered my question.
Yeah, there was nothing. So now, somebody in your unit stepped up, and it wasn't just one. It was several. Just so people can see that this is what makes the camaraderie and the team mentality in the military what it is. I don't care what branch you're in. I mean, we could pick on each other for being in different branches all day long, but we all recognize this. Your team stepped up. What happened?
So I want to preface this by saying that there were people in my unit that treated me. They recognized what was going on, and they treated me very well. I'm going to name drop this man because I have a lot of respect for him. It's Sergeant Aguirre. We had two platoon sergeants at the time. One was I don't know if you remember if he was med boarding or just normally getting out, but one was training the other guy to be a platoon sergeant, and Sergeant Aguirre was the senior NCO, and he was a guy that I mean, to this day, I mean, I almost want to say I love that man. He sat me down after my hospitalization and spoke to me, and just like a human being, and I never had that while I was in the military. Anyways, I say a lot of bad things about the company that I was in, but I did have a small crew that was very, we were very tight, very good friends, and they went to my unit commander. I remember they went to my unit commander and they basically were like, dude, what's your problem here? This man's mother, it's essentially his mother, just died, and you're not going to let him go to the funeral for no reason. And he ended up allowing it, thank God.
How long were you gone then?
I was only gone for, I want to say a week. Maybe it was a week and a half. I can't really remember.
So you were there, got to see your grandma before she passed. You were there then because some people kind of went to bat for you. You were able to stay for the funeral. Then you went home. I hate that term for the military, but I mean that's where you were living. So you went back to base. Were you 10th Mountain Division?
Yes.
We're sorry.
Yeah, everyone says that. That is an awful base.
I was 82nd, and everybody's like, "Oh, hey, you're part of the 10th Mountain's part of the 18th Airborne Corps." Yeah, we don't like them.
Yeah.
We don't know why they're part of us. So I know anyway. I'm teasing. See, I can even pick on people from my branch.
There you go.
So you go back, and this weighs on you really heavily. You have this time of this hazing, this very detrimental mentality towards you from certain, not all, but certain aspects of the unit you were in. You go through this loss. Ostensibly, you lose your mom. And prior to this, you're feeling some stuff. You weren't feeling right, but you were managing. You get back, and things take a very precipitous drop for you almost immediately.
Yeah, I think it was the hazing obviously continued as per normal, and I think the mix of what happened to my grandmother shortly thereafter to the girl that I was talking to and seeing, she actually broke up with me that as well shortly after I came back from leave. So that was another stressor that was on top of
That's like,
what
thanks a
happened.
lot, sweetheart. That was great. Wonderful timing.
Yeah, exactly. And I, the hazing, the ex, and the grandmother just it was too. It was it reached it. I reached my breaking point essentially, and I have throughout my life I had my bouts of depression throughout high school, and that wasn't because I was bullied or anything like that or hazed. It was just I was a hormonal teenager. I was still learning life, and I knew. I say that because I knew what my baseline was, and I went through therapy in high school, not necessarily because I was depressed, but because I just enjoyed seeing a therapist. It's nice to have someone where I could just come and just let it all out. Because like I said earlier, I'm that guy that kind of just bundles everything up, and I don't want to just go to my current girlfriend and then blast her about every problem I have in existence. Because God knows when she does that to me, I don't want to listen to the whole damn thing. No one does. And no one wants to be an emotional blanket. It's just not fun. So that's why I enjoy seeing a therapist, as I enjoy having that out. Well,
Can you say that
anyways.
one more time so Skipper stops calling me?
All hours of the night too.
It's fine.
So at that point, like I said, I had basically I had reached my breaking point, and I still remember my mentality. I had a 3-year contract, and I don't know how many people here have reached the point where they're having extreme suicidal ideations, but when you get to that point, your thoughts they don't they don't make coherent sense. And this, like, not that I'm thinking random gibberish, it's that your thought process isn't accurate. It's compromised in a sense where it's just you kind of, at least for me, I guess I can't speak for everybody who has depression. You just kind of go down this just spiral where all you can think about is negative. All you can think about is that you can't think about positive doesn't exist when you reach to that point. All you think about is negative. And I just remember every morning I would wake up and I would think to myself, I'm stuck in this contract. I'm going to be bullied and hazed for the next, at the time, 3 years, and this is going to be my life for 3 years. It's just bullying and hazing, and I knew the realistic mindset is that wasn't real. That was not what was going to happen. Obviously, it would stop at some point, but when you're in that state, you don't think that way. And so that was my mindset. It was just, this is my life. You know, everything's going wrong. My mother figure just died. My girlfriend just broke with me. I'm being hazed. I don't have friends. I'm in this brand new state that I've never been in. I feel completely alone and empty. And that eventually led to severe suicidal ideations where, my brain was thinking just, the only way I'm going to get out of this is if I kill myself. The only way I'm going to get out of this is if, I end my life. And there was a part of me that knew that wasn't true. So I reached out to friends back home. And there was one particular friend of mine who was very concerned about me because he had never seen me like that before. And he called the local military police to have a welfare check done. And so the military police showed up. I was, at the time, I was having such severe suicidal ideations that I was almost formulating a plan. And I actually dealt with one of my best friends. The reason I'm so passionate about this subject, mental health, is I had my best friend in high school. He used to be my shooting partner, and he used my firearm to shoot himself. And so ever since then, I've been very big on mental health. I've been very big on treating mental health like you would treat physical fitness. So that's a little bit of more context about why I'm so passionate about this subject. But to go back to what I was saying, I reached out to a friend of mine that was not in the military, and I went to my squad leader, one of my squad leaders at the time, who was very supportive of just mental health in general. And so I went to him and I told him what was going on. And while I was explaining that to him, the military police showed up. And there was a staff sergeant, and I think the other guy was a corporal. And they just said, like, "Hey man, we got a call from a concerned friend of yours who was concerned about your mental well-being. Like, how are you doing? What's going on?" And at that point, I was very emotional, and I just told him everything. I said, "Look, this is what's going on." I just vented, let it all out. And the staff sergeant looked at me and he said, "Do you want to go to a hospital to get some help?" And at the time, when I pictured one of those psychiatric facilities, I pictured, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where there's a bunch of crazy people running around and there's a crazy nurse just trying to force feed you medicine, and that's what I pictured in my head. So when the sergeant recommended that, I was immediately hesitant. I was like, no, I don't want anything to do with that. But the staff sergeant kind of like got very level with me. He said, "Look, man, like, I know what you're thinking. I know what's going on in your head. But what you're thinking about those places is not true. I think you would benefit heavily from going there." And I agreed. So they informed me, I wasn't under arrest, I wasn't being detained. They were just going to take me there to make sure I actually quit. So I got in the back of their squad car. They dropped me off at the Samaritan Medical Center in Watertown, New York. And I went inside the hospital. And I'll pause so we can discuss some more.
No, I think that you're. The only thing I would say is that I'm sorry you had to deal with the MPs.
Yeah. I actually had, everyone talks a lot of crap about the MPs, but
yes,
I was going
and rightly so.
I was going 85 and a 30 when I was late to a detail that was on the airfield, and I got pulled over by an MP, and he let me go. So ever since then, I've always been okay with it.
Oh, so you're okay with it as long as you're the beneficiary of their
Well, of
discretion.
course.
I see how you. Never trust the MP. Uh,
It's interesting listening
um,
to your story because all the things that you're talking about for our listeners uh, are very much true of many other people. You're listing the stressors, and it's just one after another that are common things that we see, not just with people with PTSD, but people who uh, are contemplating suicide from the military.
I I always I go back to Private Ellis a lot. I mean, I wasn't very close, so I'm not even gonna try to be one of those grifters who takes that, oh, he was my best friend. But Ellis was a good kid. He was a very, very, very good kid. And it's a lot of people when they think military suicide and they think veteran suicide, they think the guy who was out there on the wire, saw some stuff. But like you said, that's not always the case. You never know what's going on in
Mm-hmm.
people's heads. You just never know. And with Ellis, from what I understand, he had some family issues that was going on, and I'm not exactly sure what the family issues were, but I knew that he had some issues that was going on at home. And when you, just like with me, when you've got issues that are being internalized and you don't have an out, you don't have any friends, and everyone's just, for him especially. I mean, I say that what I went through was horrible, but what Ellis went through, I don't even want to imagine. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure his was physical, and like really physical. And so Ellis, that's, like you said, that's for the listeners. That's not always what it is. It's not always PTSD. It's not always. Sometimes it can just be a big culmination of things.
well, and here's something else too is that it's so easy for us to um, we can look at the experiences that we've been through and say, look, like, what are you complaining about? Your life's not that hard. Like compared to what I've been like, I go through this now with what I do for work now versus what I was doing for a career and a living before, and I listen to people complain about how hard their job is. I'm like, oh, bro, seriously? Like, I just spent the last 12 and a half, almost 13 years in an environment where literally every single person that I was dealing with on a daily basis wanted to kill me. And that was not working at McDonald's.
That hasn't
Um,
changed.
it was, yeah, and it still hasn't changed. My co-host wants to kill me, and the producer pretty much every day just wants to take me out. So he, um, but sometimes even when we're not even doing a show, he just sends me a message. If I could fire you, um, but we have a tendency, and because we look at the world through not rose-colored glasses, but we get this. Until you've experienced what I've experienced, you don't know how hard it really is. And so the guy who's been in combat, who's been in the crap, who's been in the thick of it, can look at the guy who maybe hasn't deployed yet or maybe won't deploy and say, "Why? What? Like seriously, bro? Like, okay, yeah, Fort Drum sucks, but it doesn't suck that bad. You haven't been in the suck." And then if you do express, yeah, well, I've got this going on, then oh, well, that's because you're a weakling. And the problem
Mm-hmm.
is that it doesn't address the reality of how
Mm-hmm.
stressors impact
So,
and sometimes the strongest people are the ones that are impacted the most by some of the most frivolous things because they don't know how to deal with the frivolous reality. You grew up in a poverty stricken home where everybody has to work just to be able to eat. You're like literally used to scrimping, like and getting by to and then all of a sudden you get into an environment where you have 3 square meals a day, and you know that the electricity is going to be on, and you know the heat's going to be on, and at Fort Drum you want the heat on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's just the way it is. And all of a sudden, like, you actually have it, like, you think, you look at your life and you go, I got it a lot better than grandpa and grandma do. And so you don't know how to like your body, your psychology, your chemistry doesn't know how to adjust to that, that's going to impact you in a way where the guy who had a really nice, middle class upbringing isn't gonna, like, he's gonna adjust. He's gonna be like, you don't mind living in the barracks? Are you kidding me? This sucks. Like, I have to, I have to clean my own room.
Well, the
You're
thing
over here going, I'll clean your room. Give me $20. Like, I'm used to it.
the
So
thing that stands out about the three of us, okay, is that there's a lot of similarities between all of us. Uh, Isaac, you and I both were in a bad unit. TC, you were in a bad just work situation, but it was civilian. But with all of them, there were what I would refer to as close calls, and that's because I have a safety background. And I learned doing safety that close calls are a warning. And if you don't listen to the warning, then and do something about the close call to prevent it from happening, it's gonna happen again. It's probably gonna be worse. And like you said with Ellis's suicide, they came in, they investigated, they found nothing that they did wrong. That was ignoring the problem, and that in that case, it wasn't a close call. It was an absolute tragedy, but yet they still didn't find any lessons from it. Didn't do any command climate changes, and just kept on going with the bad processes and bad things that caused that situation. And that's one thing that I see. TC, you posted about, something. There was a close call at your civilian uh, workplace that you posted about on Facebook this week, and it's a common thread. So for all of our viewers out there, especially any in the military, if you're seeing these type of behaviors, just know it's going to get worse. This is how we get situations like Fort Hood, where it's just a myriad of problems across commands because no one is addressing the problem. They maybe will talk about the symptoms and that's it.
yeah, well,
It
it because we treat it the same way we treat everything. Isaac, you brought up your grandmother's approach to Western medicine, which, like, hindsight being what it is, your grandma was probably right
mhm.
about Western medicine, because they
Don't get
certainly
us
haven't done us any
deplatformed.
favors over the last few years. Uh,
Yeah, it's
what'd
true.
you say, Skipper?
Don't get us deplatformed. We've already got strikes
No,
against us.
that's why I said what I said the way I said it. But you you look at the situation that you were in, and you were ripe. You had struggled with depression as a youth. Um, you have all of these triggering events come in, and the basic military mentality is just deal with it, suck it up and drive on. I mean, we hear how many times I heard that all the time. I don't know if they still use it. There's probably some sort of politically correct reason why you can't say that in the Army anymore, but just suck it up and drive on. And
Mhm.
and that's not how it works. I've got a lot of friends right now that are going through a lot of loss. People who have lost loved ones due to a particular thing that's been going on for the last couple of years. That was outside of their control, and the response from a lot of people in their lives has been, "Aren't you over this yet? Why don't you deal with it?" And that's just not how grief works. That's not how psychological damage works. And so you take your situation where you've got these MPs sitting there in front of you now, and they're showing you some sort of empathy and compassion, and they're looking at you going, "You need to go. Like, we're just telling you, we can't make you, but we would like you to go to this facility," and they end up taking you off post from Fort Drum to a civilian hospital where you spent some time inside of a mental health treatment wing of a civilian care center.
It was. I mean, if I could figure out who those people were, I mean, I would give them a hug because I truly do think that they saved me. And the hospital it was a great experience. in the service, especially with mental health, at least in the infantry. Again, I don't want to speak for any other units. I don't want to speak for any other MOSs. So I'm not even going to pretend like I know what it's like with them. But in the infantry, if you were the guy that went to go see a therapist, as much as the NCOs were told by Sharp and all, or not Sharp, by all these the bigger commanders and stuff like that, like a battalion commander and all them, as much as they were told by the guys above them that they need to encourage you to see a therapist, everybody knew. You knew in the back of your head that everyone was thinking that, oh, this guy's a bitch. That's why he needs a therapist. And so I do think that a huge chunk of why I didn't just continue to see a therapist like I normally did was contributed to that. And so when I went to the hospital, it was basically like barracks. The best way I could describe it. It was, you had a room, you shared it with a person, and I think they had group therapy exercises. And so every day you would get up and you would get involved with a group therapy exercise, and everyone would get together. And they had a separate ring for the people that were, like really cuckoo. So the guys that were with me were just every single one of them were active duty, all but one. So that told me something. That gave me a very, or if they weren't active duty, they were X, or they had just gotten out. And so the majority of them were all veterans or active duty, and that surprised me. And I think that a big chunk, another reason why my mental health wasn't in the greatest state either, was because of what you said, TC, which was that I felt like I didn't have anyone who was in the same situation as me. I thought that I was alone and that I was just being a bitch. I was just being a pussy, because that's what you're told. That's what you're told in the infantry, that you don't show emotion. You're man.
Oh, hey, Isaac, it's not just. I mean, I was with the 82nd, so I mean, we were all treated like infantry, but my particular MOS was not infantry, and I was a lackluster soldier at best. So, just like I'm a lackluster co-host at best most of the time. So, I really shine on my own platform when I don't have a guest. So, but
Anyways, go ahead.
you're not alone in that. So, so thanks a lot, Juan. um, so you end up spending how many days was it? Were you there? 5? Was
I
it?
guess 4 or 5. It was 4 or 5 days.
So you spent 4 or 5 days there. You were discharged. You went back to your unit, and I want to get to the meat of this. Not that any of the rest of the background has been bad at all, but we do have Marines that watch, so we probably lost a few of them by now. So and the Air Force guys had to go to bed already. So, so we see you come through this. You get out. You get back to your military life. You start seeing a therapist who you said was a military therapist, and you actually had a really good working relationship with this therapist. You eventually transition out of the military. You go back to civilian life, and you decide that you want to. You're with you. I believe you're with her now. You're with a new girlfriend, and congratulations to you, and my condolences to her. So, so you're with a new girlfriend, and you guys have a couple of experiences, and you say, well,
Yeah.
I want to buy a firearm.
Yeah. So I grew up shooting. I grew up in the woods. I grew up hunting. I grew up fishing. I grew up very very redneck, if you want to call it. But I grew up in a very small town, relative, and I live in Dallas now, so it's very relative. I grew up in a very small town. I bought my first handgun when I was, or not handgun, excuse me. I bought my first rifle as soon as I was able to, and that's just what I did. I still to this day love shooting. And so I get out of the military and I go to purchase a firearm. And I was like, you know what? I want to go buy myself a nice 12 gauge shotgun, and I want to buy myself a rifle for hunting. And I go to a local gun store, and I do fill out the form and do all that stuff. And it took, at the time, it was the biggest gun grab in history. So what they call it was right when COVID was starting. So it took me about 5 days to hear back. And on that 5th day, I get a phone call. I called them back and I'm like, hey guys, I haven't heard back from you in a while. What's going on? Oh, well, your background check was denied. And so I went, excuse me? And they said, yeah, no, your background check was denied. You can swing by here, and we give you a number that you can call to figure out why it was denied.
I
And
want to.
so at that
Hey,
point, go ahead.
Juan, we're kind of coming up on a buffer, not a buffer. We're kind of coming up on a normal show time, and for us, we've been at this for a while with the show, and the story is too important for us to like try and cram it all in the last few minutes of what we would normally run.
Should we
Isaac,
push?
would you be willing to come? Would you would you be willing to come back next week and continue here?
Yeah, I could do that.
Juan, can we work that out? Juan says yes. He gave us the thumbs up, so that's either yes or his ears aren't working.
Yeah, because this is a great discussion, and I think
This is
really important.
The last half of this is actually as intense and as important as the first portion of this is. The second half of this is incredibly poignant to veteran mental health, active duty mental health, but in general, the impact of mental health treatment for veterans as it goes forward. Because what you just said is incredibly. This is why people don't seek mental health treatment in the United States, but especially veterans, especially cops. It what it does to them is terrifying, and this is why we have the problem that we have. So if you're willing to come back next week, we'd love to do that. But if I know our producer, he has something for us to end this section of the show on a note that isn't quite as heavy as normal. Oh yeah, whatever, Juan. I know better. So Juan is.
hey, while we're waiting on that,
I don't know.
TC, Isaac, do either of you speak any other languages?
I know. I know American Sign Language enough that I can communicate with somebody.
Do you, by any chance, know?
Used it in a very long time.
By any chance, do you know what a bra is? The word for a bra in German?
I don't.
Stop him from flopping.
Why would we know this? Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we have a TC rant section of the program.
He does the rants, I do the jokes. Jokes.
The jokes.
They're not going to get better.
Isaac, if people want to talk to you and they want to hear more from you on a personal level, do you have any kind of social media you're okay sharing? And if you don't want to, that's fine too. I'll just put you right on the spot. I'm just going to throw you out there.
I actually was going to say that if there's anybody who's watching or anybody who wants to communicate with me and hear more about my story or anything like that, you can reach me at my email, and it's IRICHEY25, so iRichey25 at gmail.com. My goal is to make what happened to me as aware as possible, because I want people to understand, like you said, the broader implications and the broader impacts of what happened to me. I want people to understand that. I want people to understand that about why this is bad, why this is wrong, and why it needs to be changed.
Absolutely, and other veterans have experienced this.
Yeah, so let's hold you over for next week and finish the last half of the story, and in the interim, since we have your email address and Skipper, you've got it. Why don't we, while you're at it, see if you and Skipper can connect, because Skipper has a lot more connection. I just talk to important people. Skipper knows important people. So
I don't know about all that.
That's the only reason he has me on this show is because
Yeah, I do get veterans who reach out for different things, different resources, and I keep a list of people we've had on the show, and we always try to connect people. We always try to. Someone once told me that veterans are very good at networking. We just suck at being able to turn it into money, and I'm still trying to figure that one out. But yeah. Well, I'll be sending you some stuff and some other places that I think would be interested in what you're doing, and places where I think you might even be interested in helping. Um, but it looks like we have something from Juan.
On today's show, we have an exclusive interview with one of the survivors from the Martha Vineyards incident. Stay tuned. Gracias, Carl. It's been 3 days. Yes. How are you doing? Honestly, it's been very difficult for me. Explain. When the poor, sad little migrants arrived on the vineyard, I was on my way to Pilates, and I was overwhelmed. I was overcome. I'm sorry. Just a moment. I was overcome with emotion. What were they there for? How did they get here? What are we going to do with them? So many thoughts went through my mind. I knew that it would be up to me, us, to do something special for them, because obviously they couldn't stay. They couldn't stay on the vineyard. So we fed them. We made them a lovely breakfast. They had all kinds of cereal. It was amazing how we all pulled together to help them. And I remember one little migrant in particular. Her name was Lupe. Her name was Lupe. She just kept saying to me, "Donde está la baño?" And which means, "Please be my friend." I kept saying to her, "I am your friend. Soy es el baño." Yes. And it was so touching for both of us. It was a moment that we had together that we'll cherish forever. How is the vineyard recovering after such a traumatic event? As you said, it's been 3 days. I have started therapy to just address the emotions, and but overall, I think I'm doing okay. Thank you for asking. Appreciate that. And what is next for you? I'm so glad you asked. Well, very excited to announce that I've written a book about our experience, and it is on the bestseller list. So it's very exciting for me and the migrants, of course, to share their story in my book about my experience with the migrants. And yeah, thank you. You are brave. And there you have it. Powerful stuff, folks. We'll see you in the next episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our one and
So
only
brave.
very own Elsa Kurt. She is part of the Red America Media Network, and she's hilarious. And I would much rather co-host Veteran Nation with Elsa. She's a lot
Me
easier
too.
on the eyes, I'll tell you that. Juan, Juan, I'm glad that you're willing to give up your spot to Elsa then. So, Juan, you could tell Elsa she can come be my co-host any day. Any day. And I think I speak for everyone when I say we would all like for Martha Vineyard to be our baño.
I'm from California. I know what that means.
So Isaac, we really appreciate you being willing to come over for a part 2, and let's
Yeah.
try not wearing gym clothes for the next.
Yeah,
show.
I won't that time.
Well, mostly because it embarrasses Skipper and I. When you get to be Skipper's age, it takes a lot to
Are you kidding me? You're lucky I'm not doing this show in a kimono and nothing else.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say that Skipper does not represent the views of everyone else.
Follow us on
Media,
YouTube.
and certainly
Veteran
doesn't
Nation on YouTube.
I appreciate you guys having me on. It really does mean a lot. It means a lot more than I can even put in words.
Well, thank you for coming
Well,
on.
you are plugged into it. You're plugged into a network now, so you're probably on a watch list after tonight. So
Probably.
To our FBI handlers, thank you for watching tonight. TC, you plugging anything?
So, I am. I'm on with. I can't even say his name, and I just had him on. His name is really. He's a Croatian Mexican American. I'm not even kidding. I had him on. We were talking about a particular phenomenon that starts with a particular letter of the alphabet, and he invited me on his show this week, Thursday night, 8 o'clock, on TNT Radio Network, and I'm going to be on with him for 45 minutes or so on Thursday night, and we're going to be talking about police reform and some other national issues, but in particular police reform, because for some reason that's near and dear to my heart. And boy, honestly, I've got a series. I've got a series going on right now where I've talked to a lot of people here over the last couple of months about what they've been through and this pain and suffering that they're going through in their mental health, and as it relates to a particular virus. And then, yeah, merch, coffee, best coffee you're ever gonna try. Very, very good coffee right here. I don't know why it's so good, other than it might be a supporter of the show that makes that and labels it for me. And then, and by the way, Skipper, just so you guys know, the beanies, they're going to be available by the end of the week. So, and Skipper, I'm pretty sure we have a merch. Skipper, where'd you go? You come back? Oh,
We do have our
he has a
Teespring
support
store.
cat.
Yep. Me and Conspiracy Kitty. We're going to be doing some series on flat Earth theory. We're going to also be talking about why the moon is not real. For those of you who want to support everything that we're doing, patriotswitch.com/veterannation. You can join us there, and everything that you purchase will be a donation to our new nonprofit, because we are a nonprofit now, and we can help more veterans if you go there and shop. And yeah, we do have our Teespring store. I don't have the link in front of me, but it will be in the, if you're watching on YouTube, it will be in the description. If not, it is on our Twitter, at VetNation Show, or at VetNation Pod on Twitter.
Skipper, it is possible to cut and paste the link for the Teespring store and put it in the comment section of the video on the Red American Media Facebook page.
It definitely is in the description. I do know that. I do have it there. So if you're watching on YouTube, just go in the description and it's there. It's there right now. I promise. It's there.
Skipper, are we still nonprofit?
We are a nonprofit, yes. And we're going to be doing a lot of really cool things. So give us money. Money, please. Money now.
Yeah. Give us money, because it's probably too late. But Skipper has this picture of a suit that he likes to wear when he goes places, and I just want to know. I want everybody to know we're nonprofit, but Skipper has this pimp level clothing that he wears. So, folks, I think we need to go.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a great show, and as always, thank you for being worth serving.